Welcome to Women Seeking Wholeness. I'm Cherie Burton. This is a podcast for women who long to feel, express, and be who they truly are. And men too, I might add. I have a lot of male listeners who listen as closeted listeners, but I love it because we all need to heal this feminine in us, which seeks expression through not so black and white logical ways. And that's where we're diving in today with Erin Miller. I've recently gotten to know her. She's amazing. She's an author of the title of this episode, a book called Motherhood Stripped. Just going to go through her 4-layered method for releasing all the worry, anxiety, and fear around being you, and then moving into a space of motherhood, because we've got to get that strong foundation of self-care. And I know that word gets overused so much, but we're going to talk about it in a different way. She's a photographer by art and trade. She also does a podcast, which I had the great honor of being a guest on. So she just has this high vibe way of looking at mothering from a very self-empowered place. She has a master's degree in counseling psychology, and she'll share her story of how she kind of put that career on the back burner and made the bold decision to leave that and become a full-time mom and start her own business. So she'll talk about that, and we're going to dive deep into this whole, what creates mothering anxiety? Where is that mother guilt coming from, and how do you mend it and not get stuck in this loop of people pleasing, and also that whole struggle with finding meaning in the mundane, how you can heal with some really simple self-support tools and get out of that whole mothering anxiety yucky loop. Erin, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me, Cherie.
Oh, it's so fun to be on your podcast. And it's so cool when I meet somebody who has, I know you're younger than I am, and your kids are, part of your kids are younger than mine. That's a whole other story. I have older kids and younger kids, but it was just great to meet you and see how you roll with life and some of the tools you use that are so similar to me. So I was like, I want you to be on my show now.
I'm so excited to be here. I love that.
Well, let's dive in. The name of this episode is Motherhood Stripped. Mm-hmm. And I know people are probably getting visions of mothers stripping.
I know. It was a very brave title.
Yeah, but I love it. I love that we're just getting real and raw. I can't think of anything harder than parenting.
Oh, yeah. And no one really tells you that. They do, but you don't get it until you're a mother, really.
Until you're in it.
Yeah.
So let's just start there with kind of your pain points, because this is now your expertise. This is what you're walking and sharing and making your niche. So what brought you to the place where you're like, okay, I gotta do it differently, and now I've got to help others and support them doing it differently?
Yeah, it was essentially just a full-blown breakdown, and it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that that's the part that I love to talk about and share. So in my book titled Motherhood Stripped, I share my story, not because I want it to be about me. Even I remember my publisher asked, I'm a photographer too. And my publisher asked, do you want to add pictures into the book of your life during that time? Because I document my life. I said, no, because this isn't about me. I want the reader to read my story and see them and recognize that, oh my gosh, okay, I'm not alone in this journey. And the journey I share is the slow fall into just massive crippling anxiety. And even if women, if we want to call it postpartum anxiety, depression, we can. Mine really hit about when my son, who is my second baby, was 14 months old. So we're not talking 3 months postpartum here. This really hit much later, and my kids are 18 months apart. So I had a 3 and 1 year old, and I was just in the bottom of it. And the thing is when I started to recognize what was happening. So another fun fact, I have a master's degree in counseling. So I'm equipped to support people who deal with anxiety, but I didn't even realize that that's what I was dealing with. I just thought I was, we're put in this society as mothers thinking we're supposed to be overwhelmed. We're supposed to have the messy bun and the coffee during the day and the wine glass at night. And I mom so hard. And I think because of those messages out in our society, we assume that this is how it's supposed to be, that we should ourselves, that we, if we're too busy to eat our food, we're doing a great job. That means we earned our busy badge. And we applaud ourselves because we call ourselves super mom. You're so super. And that's what I was told all the time is, I don't know how you do it all. It's so amazing. So I never wanted to stop because then I felt like I wasn't amazing if I stopped.
It's like if you are a natural influencer, you almost feel like you're letting people down.
Exactly.
If you don't keep up the pace.
Exactly. And I'm a natural, right. Exactly. Oh my gosh. I mean, huge burnout. So my story is very much about my anxiety. But I believe that my story really resonates with women who, even if you don't deal with anxiety, I think most mothers, overwhelm resonates with them. Some of us deal with depression. I know that's a story that you share. And I think that any mother can, share the feeling of this is hard. Mm-hmm. It feels too hard. And I don't want it to feel this hard because we romanticize becoming a mother. You know, we and I share that story, how I met my husband. And then my husband and I truly have one of those annoyingly cute love stories. And I know not everybody has one of those stories, but I know we all have, as a lot of us women, not every woman, of course, we can't generalize anything, but how we have that craving to meet our person and become engaged and get married, and we romanticize each next phase. So I share this story and how put together I was and how excited I was to become pregnant and become a mother. And then what? Like, what's the next romanticized vision? We're kind of like left on the edge of the cliff. And all of a sudden we're just, you know, filled with diapers and plastic toys and dirty I said diapers. I guess that was a huge part of my life, and feeding and just that mundane rotation of things that we do every day as a mom. And then I'm this ambitious woman where I chose to leave my career as a counselor when I became a mom, which is a whole story in itself, to have the intuition and courage to actually walk away from a career. And then I started my own business as a photographer, and it was very organic. I didn't have any expectations, but I am addicted to that, really that wounded masculine space I should say, of wanting to prove my worth through, my success and my income. And so I became very addicted to that entrepreneur, and any entrepreneur can agree and be like, oh yes, I know what you mean. Just that roller coaster of constantly wanting to strive to do more, be bigger. Mm-hmm. And I really got lost in that cycle of, I just put myself last. It was like, as soon as the kids are down, I need to work on my business, so I put everything last. I did not take care of myself, and my body was talking to me all along, like just those little nudges, like, hey, Erin, let's take care of yourself. And I was like, I'll do it later, until the point that I had no choice. And I was just physically on the ground. I was in the urgent care. I was calling my husband home from work saying, I can't take care of the kids because I'm too sick. And that was my bottom. And then as I shared this with women, and this is where I was like, okay, we need to do something about this. As I shared this with women quietly among like safe groups, like whether it was my exercise class or friends, and I would say, oh, I've been dealing with anxiety. I had an anxiety attack. And they look at me and they go, oh, I know, me too. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? What do you mean? Wait, this is a thing? And
isn't it so interesting when you get real, who comes out of the woodwork?
Everybody. I'm like, we're all dealing with this by ourselves. Like, why are we doing this?
Well, I think people are talking about it a little bit more, but it's still like, why would a mother admit that? What does that make her? What kind of mother? Yeah. There's still some cultural beliefs around that.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. So it was a really, really hard point in my life. And I had to choose to advocate for myself. And I remember when I hired somebody, so I had a therapist, I had a hormonal nutritionist. I ended up doing coaching and energy work and all of this stuff to support myself. And I remember one of the first people I spoke with, I was physically shaking and nauseous all day long. I lost a ton of weight. Like, I was just sick all the time. And I remember being on the phone with her and I said, my gloves are off and I'm going to fight. I'm not going to lay down and just take the path of least resistance. Like, I have to figure out why this is happening. I don't want to treat symptoms. I need to get to the root of what's going on here, because this is not me. And this is not happily ever after. And it doesn't have to feel like this. And I know that. I just knew in my gut. So I But the thing is not everybody has that determination. Like I'm that fierce Leo, Scorpio rising woman who I fight.
Scorpio rising.
Yes. No.
But so much love with your Leo, just so much. You care so much. And that's why that is my actual theory on anxiety, by the way. You care so much that you're in fear of either letting someone down or not caring for people at the right level that your heart desires. Oh, it's a very real thing with anxiety.
Yeah. That's absolutely it. And isn't that what being a mom is? You would give your life for the people that you love.
Oh yeah.
And that's essentially what we're doing. Mm-hmm. But then doesn't it make more sense that when we really take care of ourselves, we can take better care of those that we love? And it's just really rewriting that narrative.
Yes. So not only do you reduce the anxiety with heightened conscious self-care naturally, but you're also kind of training, I think, your children in the power, because I didn't see my mother model self-care, bless her heart. Like it just wasn't even on topic for her era.
No. Didn't even know what it was.
So we never learned that. It was never really modeled to us consistently.
Because there's a negative connotation with it. You know, if you sleep in or you're laying down on a Saturday when the house should be cleaned, you're lazy. You should be doing something. You're wasting the day away. Where I think a lot of us can resonate with those sayings. You know, all of us were raised differently, but I that's kind of a typical way that we've all been raised. So we have this, you know, these negative belief systems around self-care because of the narrative that's been written.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we just care so much. We want the best. It'll keep you up at night. I'm here to tell you. I have 5 kids. So it's like, I raised the first set, or you already know this, most listeners do too, but they're all in college now. And the 2 little ones are 6 and 8. And I'm like, okay, how do I avoid the worry about your teenager phase with them? Like I'm already,
if you figure it out, let me know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it does come down to like, how do I want to be a worrying mom or a trusting, loving mom? Because because anxiety is just fear. So like the opposite of fear is love. Now, obviously love my kids, but it's putting that love into a practice for yourself as a woman. Yes. That's where, and I know you talk, and I know you're a master. You are in the process of mastering this. I know that you have not mastered it, but you teach this.
Right.
So your pain point just grew to a place where you're like full on breakdown. You had to surrender.
No choice.
And then what happened?
So I found that my intuition's always been very strong. So I am an empath. I am a highly sensitive person. So basically those, I feel like your listeners probably know what that is, but those totally. who just have big feelings. So I feel everything. And I know that I've always been different and very intuitive. And I think, we all kind of tap in and out of our intuition as we go through life until you hit the personal development world. Then you're just full blown into your intuition all the time and just grow stronger and stronger. But I very intuitively knew there was something with my hormones. I just knew that there's something was drawing me to a hormonal nutritionist. So I began working with her to just learn to heal my body with food. And she also was becoming certified in a system called Chakrity. So it's very similar to Reiki healing. And it's a system that was designed by this woman, Alexis, and she's based out of Oregon, I believe. And it's this beautiful system where you use a pendulum to assess your chakras, and it helps prioritize and let you know what chakra is prioritizing is needing to be healed and what is blocking the energy in that chakra, just through assessing with a pendulum. And anybody who is certified, so it's very similar to Reiki where you're certified in level 1, 2, 3. So anyone who's certified who is using this type of system is the Intuit, so you and I could both be certified in Chakrity and read the same person, but it might show something different because Chakrity knows to use you for your gifts and me for my gifts and to connect with that person in that way. So this woman who's now one of my dearest friends, I think I talk to her every single day. She really opened me up into this world of chakras. So I'm someone who was raised Catholic and had that fear around psychic kind of things,
sure,
but always was very drawn to them.
That felt supernatural.
Yes, exactly. So, but at the same time, so my parents continue to be very, very devout Catholics, and my kids go to Catholic school. It's still a huge part of our life, but that's something that's important to me too, to show women like you can have religion and this spirituality side too. Like we can, I don't want to say break the rules, but we can rewrite what this looks like. So anyway, it was scary for me to kind of be open to learning about chakras. Like, what is this energy stuff? But I'm so grateful that I did, because again, I connected with my intuition I was basically at a point of like, well, this can't hurt. Now can it? Like anything at this point is going to support me. And I found so much more connection with myself. And, we live in a world where we are constantly looking for our direction from the outside. We're looking for our clues from the outside all the time. And we forget that everything we need is inside of us. And learning about the chakras really allowed me to recognize, oh, my body is my guide. And that if I connect in with myself, I can find what I need in a day. That if I'm feeling anxious, I can figure out why my body's telling me, instead of trying to fix it from the outside or trying to ignore it or all of those things. So between nutrition, understanding my chakras, and then immediately I got into oracle cards as well.
Which I kind of bonded with.
Yes. Yeah.
Because when you mentioned it on your podcast, I was like, wait, what? Me too.
Yes.
And I would have always thought that was like this evil divination tool.
Right.
That I would be deceived by Satan or whatever, or evil spirits, and that I would get the wrong messages. But I just want to insert this here because you did mention your religious upbringing and how, it was quite orthodox with how you were trained to see these things. And I know that this is breaking open for everyone, especially in the consciousness, because these are ancient feminine arts, and the patriarchal systems have made them to be exactly witchcraft, basically. And so a good gauge for that, especially if you are religious, is to look at the scriptures that talk about the fruits, how you know it's from God versus not. If it enlarges your soul, expands your mind, gives you the fruits, quote unquote, fruits of the spirit that it talks about in Galatians, love, joy, temperance, hope, all these things, if it enlarges those capacities within you, then it's of God and it's good. So I just had to put that in there because I know when you mention things like oracle cards, people absolutely flip.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Whoa, I would never. That's like a Ouija board or whatever.
Right, right.
No, it's not.
No, there's such a gift. And the way I love to explain them to people is that I feel like they're an external tool that help connect you in with your own intuition. And, again, within your own knowing that, how when you're dealing with some type of conflict in your life and you call all of your friends, your mom, all your sisters, like, what should I do about this? I'm not sure what to do. And you're looking for that advice from the outside. And ultimately, typically what happens is someone will give you advice and then you're like, no, that's not what I'm going to do. And then all of a sudden, because you need that information to kind of connect in with your own knowing. That's how I see oracle cards. I find them to be, whatever cards you draw for yourself, whether it's a single card draw or you do a full spread or whatever, that it's just this knowing where you read it. It's like a friend's advice and you kind of take it or leave it.
I love that.
Yeah, it's just that fun, like, oh, okay, that's a good idea. So I would use that early on in my journey when I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, so that if I pulled a card that said, take a break today, I felt full permission to be like, well, I can do that. And I can tell that that's exactly what I need. And it was that external, as you're building your muscle to trust yourself and have that confidence to know exactly what you need for yourself. Before you have that, you need that external permission. You need the external evidence. And that's what it was for me. And it built the muscle of connection with myself. So built a relationship with myself. And then they're they're just, I just love them so much. I can't speak highly enough about Oracle cards. They're so fun and beautiful. They're such beautiful decks, and they're just a good friend.
Yeah, I have probably 20 of them.
Me too.
And I've been in hiding about it. I'll be honest, because some people think it's legit, like crazy. But I'm starting to embrace more open discussion about it, just to normalize it, because I consider myself pretty grounded. But like you, I need support. I need that external, like, is this just me? I mean, or am I going crazy or whatever? And then like you get an intuitive hit on something, and then you pull a card that is just exactly corroborating that.
Super validating.
It's very, very powerful. So I love how you talked about building the muscle of trust and connection with yourself.
Yeah.
In another episode, I was interviewing somebody who talked about spirit guides, and she talked about her name's Allison, and she talked about the different kinds of guides and how they come through, whether it's a lost loved one or an angel or whatever. And we talked about how your highest spiritual guide is your higher self, your divine soul. And we forget that we have this aspect to ourselves, especially as mothers.
Right.
There's so much advice out there, but no one has your children.
Right. Exactly.
Your
exactly.
Specific children. And they were sent to you. They probably chose you in another dimension. They wanted what you're doing and what you have. You shouldn't have to put your life on hold to mother them. They should see what you're interested in and what you're doing, so that it's probably part of their soul path.
Exactly. And not to keep it from them. And I think, honestly, I feel like at this point in motherhood, that's been some of my favorite pieces of it in the journey, is that, with my kids being 1 and 3, when I began this journey, they don't really know me before all of my woo-woo stuff.
Before you got weird?
Yeah. They only know me as weird. My daughter will come in. So I have my pendulum and all my crystals. I think I have like 3 altars in my office, but it's just all very normal in our house. It's like if they come home from school and my house reeks of sage, like, oh, did you smudge today? I'm like, yes, I did. It's just a part of our normal lifestyle. And I'm seeing how beneficial it is for them that I have these little kids. And I've shared this with you on when you interviewed with me on my episode, that my kids are recognizing at 6 and 7 years old how to stop and take a breath. Even the cutest thing at dinner yesterday, we're sitting at the dining room table, and my son all of a sudden just closes his eyes and he does a little mudra with his hands. They think I don't meditate with a hand mudra, but they just love it. They think it's so cool. Just holding, the thumb and the finger together. He just stopped and pulled himself into this like super cool meditative state just to bring himself down, because he was so fidgety, and we're asking him to show his manners at the table and all that. And then the behavioral side of myself fights, because I know he energetically needs to get it out. It's like the constant struggle, but he was able to ground himself by himself without any prompts. That's by pulling, so these are tools that they're not going to have their breakdown at 37 to then have to learn it on their own.
I know you and I are equally passionate about, nature and things like, essential oils, for example. I mean, my older kids were raised on essential oils. So while their friends were grabbing aspirin and other things, they were doing deep breathing and putting oils on until it wasn't cool. And then they were doing it in hiding. And now that they're older and they're kind of on their own to some degree, I mean, 2 of my college kids still live at home because of COVID,
right?
But they'll do that self-care for themselves. They won't run to the doctor or whatever. You know what I mean? Now that they're older and they realize that they are an autonomous, or working towards being an autonomous adult, that they are responsible for their own self-care,
right?
Without running to, I guess you could say, more, I don't know. I don't look at alternative healthcare as alternative healthcare. I don't look at nature as the real thing. So it's the real thing, not the alternative. Okay, what I would love for us to dive into, because I know that people can go to your website and find 5 ways to manage anxiety. So I'll put that link in the show notes. But what I would love for you to do is work us through your 5 layers, because you teach something called the layered growth method, and it's guiding women in supporting themselves, which is kind of all we've been talking about, which is the foundational thing to being a happy mother who does not resent her children or her role as a mother. So walk us through those 4 layers, if you would, and then we can kind of talk a little bit about it.
Yeah. So it's 4 layers. And I loved how this came to me. It was truly a divine message, because I was writing my book and I have all these tools from the past several years of working through my anxiety and trying to think of how can I put this into a book so it's cohesive, instead of just, I didn't even know how to organize it into chapters. It's like, how do I put this together? So this came to me of recognizing what I picture are 2 things: Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you don't know what it is, you can put it into a search engine, and it's one of the most popular psychological developmental theories of how you need to meet certain needs before you can basically move up to the next step. So I think of that, as well as throwing a pebble into water, and then the rings that come out from that. So that I picture us as the pebble, and then the rings around us as they get bigger and bigger. These are the different layers. So with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you have to meet certain needs before you can move up to the next. And the very highest, it's a pyramid. The highest is self-actualization. With the layered growth method, it is this constant ebb and flow through all of the layers. So in layer 4, I took a lot of those tools, which I'll explain in just a second, while I was working on layer 1 in the very beginning. So it's not even necessarily something you have to do in order, but what I will say is you have to always have layer 1 as your priority all the time, or the other layers just kind of don't matter. So what I have it set up is layer 1 is you. You are the foundation. You have to take care of yourself. So in the book I go through, and then I also have my Layered Growth Academy, which is basically when I work one-on-one with women to help them actually apply this to their life, because all of us can take in the information, but then integrating it is a different story, which we know. Yeah. But layer 1 is really focusing on yourself. So figuring out how to eat for your body, meeting all of your basic needs. Because one of the biggest things that came to me, and I wish even something this simple would be talked about more, is that our brains are still very primitive. Like, we are socially very expanded and are constantly evolving, but our brains are still very primitive, and neurologists only know, I think it's something crazy, like 10% of the brain. After all of these years, that's all they know. And what we do know is that the brain, you need to have basic needs met. And if it's not, your brain is going to turn on that fight or flight switch. So if you are a person who is not drinking enough water, if you're not eating enough food, if you're not moving your body, and if you're not getting enough sleep and you're not breathing, you're going to go into fight or flight, which is anxiety. So one of the most important things we need to do as human beings is to take care of our basic needs. But that's hard. Right? As mothers, it's like, well, when am I supposed to do that? Because we have learned to not prioritize that. So layer 1 is really focusing on how to do those things and what that looks like and how to find ease in that, and recognizing that that's the pebble, that's what's going in. So if you have a teeny tiny pebble going into the water, you're not making a whole big of an impact on the other parts of your life. And regardless, it is going to impact the other parts of your life. It's just, how is it going to? So, if you're not getting enough sleep, you begin yelling at your kids. You have, a tense relationship with your significant other. All of those different kinds of things is how it impacts the other layer. So layer 2 is then your relationships and boundaries. So this is a really close layer outside of yourself. It's like your nuclear bubble of recognizing, and this is where I lost a lot of my footing, where I did not have any boundaries. And as I work with women in my academy, when we get to this part, they Voxer me and they go, Erin, I don't have any boundaries. I'm like, I know, that's why you're working with me. And boundaries is simple as just saying no to work, asking for help with things around the house, having boundaries around your time on the phone, or when you're doing certain things. Just, there are boundaries around every different part of our life, around our money, everything. So it's really understanding, where do I need different boundaries and how do I have better relationships? How can I parent more presently? And how can I communicate better with my spouse. Those different types of pieces are really important. From there, in layer 3 is where I talk all about managing your energy. So this is understanding your chakras. This is understanding another huge piece that I work on with women is understanding their feminine cycle. So whether you're menstruating, if you're not menstruating, then you're following the moon phase, and recognizing that life is very cyclical. And what happens is women really try and function on a 24-hour cycle, like the man's body. And when we learn our own cycle and how our body's energy ebbs and flows through the different weeks, magic happens, because we're not trying to fit around a peg in a square hole. So this is understanding and managing our energy in that way, connecting more into our intuition. I teach scheduling systems to implement all of, it's about managing our energy, not our time. And then layer 4 is all of those fun woo-woo tools. So I teach EFT tapping, oracle cards, crystals, law of attraction, frequencies, and understanding the frequency of our emotions and our energy and how we have control over that, and all of those fun things. So again, it's all of these layers work together. It's not, okay, I've got layer 1, let's move to layer 2. We're working on all of the things all the time, but we have to kind of check in. So even for me, for instance, I started very strongly with layer 1, and I'm working on everything all the time in every layer. This year though, I circled back real hard back to layer 1, and I'm working with another hormonal practitioner, because it feels really great to be balancing hormones.
I'm glad you mentioned hormones, because I'm literally not even kidding you. That alone will make you crazy.
Insane. And you feel crazy.
That was another awakening that I had. I mean, I didn't even think about hormones till I was in my 40s, really. Mm-hmm. And I just turned 52 this week.
Yeah.
I know that I started, thanks. I started basically, this won't air right. I mean, this will air in the middle of January, I think. But yeah, my birthday was January 2nd. And I'm like, I'm so grateful that I listened to my intuition, because I had a very similar experience to you, where I was like, I had this knowing that there was something going on with my hormones. Mm-hmm. And so I searched and searched until I found the best fit for a practitioner who could look at functional medicine and do all that. And I've done a couple podcast episodes on it, but I just wanted to give kudos to you for even bringing that up, because I think it's the most, in motherhood, it is one of the most overlooked, because I suffered a lot of pregnancy losses, 4 miscarriages in a row. And a lot of that was due to hormonal imbalance. And a lot of it was getting postpartum depression from the miscarriages, which I didn't even know was a thing. Your hormones crash just as much when you lose a pregnancy. Anyway, and I had a lot of phantom symptoms with the last 2 children who were actually adopted from 2 separate birth mothers. I was experiencing this phantom, like a father would with his wife. I was experiencing that with their birth mothers, the same kinds of crashes. It was very, very fascinating phenomenon. So anyway, just wanted to throw that in, because when it comes to self-care and the endocrine system, it is part of your spiritual mysterium as a woman.
Yes.
The interplay between your hormones and how you receive spiritual messages and revelation.
Yeah. It's disappointing that it's something we're really raised to be ashamed of our bodies and how it works. You get your period and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to deal with this every month. And really, it's unbelievably empowering. And I'm so excited I have a daughter and get to teach her about it. And I have a son who's going to understand a woman's body to be able to know, like, this is how a month works and what it looks like and how connected we all are to the moon. And, I have my kids, I have a journal downstairs with the moons. And I hear my daughter yesterday, she screams up, she's like, hey mom, just so you know, this is when the new moon is. Can we do our ritual? Awesome. And it's just little, and it's just normalizing. And I joke to people too, if you are someone who is, doubting how strong the moon is and how much it can affect us, or if you're doubting energy, I always say these 2 things. One, if a moon can pull the ocean in and out all day long, you best believe it is controlling you. Yeah,
because we are almost all water.
We are almost all water.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was one thing that I did at the beginning of the year, because I've learned the hard way over the last couple of years to not understand when the moons are happening, even though I'm not menstruating, I'm in menopause. What I did at the beginning of the year, that as I looked looked online at all the new moons and full moons of 2021 and literally blocked off those nights in my calendar to do my own private ritual, because I have learned the hard way.
Yes.
that I must take that time.
Yeah, you do. And the more you know about yourself too, and your astrological sign, if you really want to dive into fun stuff, I don't know a lot about astrology, but I follow it like crazy because I've been drawn to it since a little kid. But when you recognize your different signs, and we have our sun sign, which most people know, but then we have our rising sign, our moon sign, all of those things. So when the moons are in their different spaces, and if it's like the new moon in Leo, it might affect me more than it could affect you. Oh, yeah, right. So it's really understanding it's just cool. It's really cool when you start to learn those things, and it's very empowering, and things start to make sense. And then you're not as blindsided. You're not as lost in this, oh my gosh, why does life feel so hard right now? Everything. So I'm menstruating right now, and I took a nap today, which is very unusual. I also had a headache today, which is unusual. And instead of falling into the, oh my gosh, I don't have any energy. I don't want to do life anymore. I feel so unmotivated. We fall into this black hole of feeling like I just want to give up on life. And it seems melodramatic, but we all hit that space because it's part of our cycle. But when we recognize it, I'm able to be like, oh, cool. Like I'm allowed to take a nap today, because I know in about 2 days, I'm going to be on fire. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to conserve my energy, take my nap, see where I can move things so that I don't fall behind. And I'm going to have a really great day in a couple of days.
Well, I did an episode with Jasmine Patton about one of the things we talked about was the moon, and she just gave us all permission. It's like, hey, cancel things. Oh yeah. I've had podcast guests literally teach me that. And they're like, I have to cancel. I've done it. Time of the month for me. And so I'm glad you didn't cancel on me, but
no, I took a nap. I think, and that's what I tell people too, is like when you're an entrepreneur, you have a lot of flexibility in shifting your schedule more, but I'm also a wedding photographer. So I tell people like, I can't call a bride and be like, I can't shoot your wedding today because I just got my period. Sorry.
She'd be like,
yeah, it doesn't work like that. So, and a lot of us there's so many things that we have obligations, but what's important is recognizing how can I support my body right now so that I do not burn out. And for me today, it was having the permission to take a nap. I walked my dog slower than I typically walk, and I nourished myself with a lot of protein and nutrition. We're going to have warm skillet cooked food tonight because that's really good for your body when you're menstruating, or if you're not menstruating, the new moon. Mm-hmm. And I also already talked to my husband. So this communication with relationships, and this is boundaries. This is layer 2. I talked to my husband right before we got onto our call today. And I told him, I'm very tired today. He knows without me needing to say that I'm menstruating because he knows my cycle better than I do. And he said, I will cook dinner tonight. I will clean up, eat, and head upstairs to take your shower and get ready for bed, because that's what I need right now. And
I love that.
Communicating.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a real thing. And we could do a whole episode just on that communication piece. I love it. So you've got layer 1 is self-care. Layer 2 is relationships and boundaries. And then what is layer 3?
Layer 3 is managing our energy. So that's really understanding the feminine energy, the chakras, your intuition. Intuition versus anxiety is a big thing. I have a whole section on that because that's one of the biggest questions that comes up with my clients. How can you tell the difference between intuition and anxiety? And in short, intuition is a flow, and anxiety is like a push. So just like you said, it's the difference between love and fear.
Oh, I love that. Mm-hmm. Flow versus push. And I always tell people too, part of these rituals of self-care, part of this whole, you talk about managing your energy, everything's energy, including your emotions. Right. So it takes more energy to push something down or to repress than it does to express. Yes. So the expression is that flow that you speak of. It's letting it out. It's creating a container of safety in and around you so that it can flow out of you. If you're constantly pushing it down in favor of taking care of other people, namely your children, or if you have a business and you have all these demands, you're constantly swallowing those emotions down, right? And if you're not communicating to your significant other, hey, this is what's going on for me, and you're constantly swallowing and pushing it down, that's when we get overburdened with toxic emotion and we get sick. We get burned out, and then we start blaming others and we start resenting others, namely the people we love the most, our husband and our kids. So it's a vicious cycle. With managing your energy, what have you found that's been really powerful for you?
A lot of the feminine energy. So really understanding the feminine and masculine energy, which I know you're the master of explaining, and just, I was so stuck in the masculine energy. So really just learning flow, like today, how I just explained my day today of like, I need to close my laptop and take a nap right now. That's very feminine energy. It's following the flow instead of pushing. Like I told myself I was going to get this done, so I'm going to get it done. And I think that's what's really hard about explaining how to manage energy, because we are so stuck in that masculine of where we need, like, here are the 5 tips to manage your energy, or, follow X, Y, and Z and your energy will be managed, where it is much more of that feminine, that intuitive, the flow, the surrender of being connected in with yourself. And ultimately with energy, obviously meeting your basic needs is huge. Moving your body. And I think that that's something that's another area for a lot of women that's very damaged, is our relationship with our physical bodies and our relationship with what exercise is, because a lot of us have connected it to a chore and like needing to exercise to have your body look a certain way. I've really learned to connect movement with, like you just explained, moving energy. There's a book called Burnout, and I can't think of the author's name.
The sisters?
They're sisters. Yeah, they're twins. Who
Nagasaki or something like that.
Something like that. It's a ski last name. And then the book Emotion Code, which I'm actually reading. Yes, thank you. So those are 2 fantastic books to read to understand how our emotions harbor inside our bodies as energy. And I love how in Burnout they explain that your bodies recognize there's the stressor and then the stress. And the stressor is the thing like needing to get taxes done. So your body, that creates stress inside of your body. So, and I love how they explained this, that when you file your taxes, while the stressor is gone now, your body still has the stress inside of it. It doesn't know like, oh, hey, you filed your taxes, we're okay now. You need to move the physical stress outside of your body, and we overcomplicate things. So it's as simple as physically going for a walk. Like I had that headache this morning, and I knew this is energy. This is a symptom of something with energy. I probably also didn't get enough sleep. So I know, okay, I need to go to bed early tonight and I need to move my body. So I walked my dog and got fresh air, and I no longer have a headache. And it's really understanding that we need to move our bodies. We get so stuck in being still, and I need to sleep more, and I just want to, binge my show on TV or whatever it is. So that's really important for managing energy as well.
I read that. Yeah.
All those things.
So, in your last layer, I mean, after you sort of, I guess, fine tune your own process for what manages your energy, because for some women it's different than others. But I think the universal aspects are, like you said, movement, nature, anything that brings us, and it's all feminine. It's all the feminine parts. Even for men, they need to bring that in. So what's the last one? What's layer 4?
So layer 4 is all of the fun tools. I call it, it's just the fun toolbox. So it's explaining EFT tapping, which is emotional freedom technique. This is also a really great way to move energy through. And you can, my resource that I always send people to is called the Tapping Solution. It's probably the best resource to understand what is it and how to do it. It's very simple. It's literally tapping certain meridian points on your body, and it physically moves energy out of your body. And I love it too, because there's so much research on it that's growing. So when you have evidence-based techniques to be able to say, like, I know this looks funny, but guess what? There have been so many things that have been healed. So a lot of my women that I work with, while I teach this in layer 4 of the program, so it's in the 4th month, I usually offer this technique early on in the program if I have a woman who's dealing with anxiety attacks regularly, because you can use EFT tapping to move the anxiety out of your body in the moment you're having it. So you can like bring yourself from a 10 down to a 7. You could do some more rounds and come all the way down to a 4, let's say.
Yeah, I love it. So when you're talking about kind of putting this mothering toolkit together, what would you say if you could choose like 4 or 5 things that a woman can just grab and go, like she's in the moment? Because emotions are so dynamic.
Yes.
We are not the same person hour by hour. We shift so so profoundly. I always tell people, when you're in a state of relative, you talked about eustress and distress, kind of those two different stressors, and one's positive and one's negative. When you are at kind of this even state, something's going to come, like your subconscious will be like, oh, she's pretty chill right now. What can we deal with here that needs to be addressed? And so sometimes you'll just hit a trigger and you're like, where's this coming from? I thought things were going well. And so that is the time. That is a powerful moment in time to not go into your caretaking mode of other people, but to like grab that toolkit and go to town for yourself and let it move through you. So, what are like 4 or 5 things that you have in your mothering toolkit? You're on the go. I call it an emotional emergency kit in my other domain, but what would you put in that?
I would say my go-to, this is such a hard question because I just love all the things so much. I would say EFT tapping, definitely. That's always one of my go-tos.
Maybe just like a one sheet that explains it, where you could just look at it and go, okay, this is how you do it.
Yeah, there's actually an app called the Tapping Solution so you tap on your eyebrows, the side of your eye, under your nose, under your lip, on your chin, on your collarbone, under your armpit, on your ribs, and then you come up to the top of your head, and that's 1 round. And you say, there's a whole guided, basically you talk about what, like, I'm so scared, I'm so anxious right now, I feel like the world is going to fall apart. You talk about what you're actually really bring those emotions up. And then you go through a round of, maybe I'm feeling this way because, and trying to, it's like a middle ground of, where is this coming from? And then the next, round is when you're talking about, I'm okay, I can get through this, I'm going to breathe through it. And it's all these rounds of speaking, and the connection of speaking with the tapping, it rewires your brain, literally. And I like using a guided app, so I don't have to, it's an easy button that I don't have to think about the words I need to say. And they have guided sessions for everything, whether it's being scared to fly, having an anxiety attack, just needing a midday pick me up. They have everything in there. So that's my go-to. I would say essential oils are my go-to.
Me too.
I huff them, I diffuse them, I roll them. They're everywhere.
Well, they can shift you out of an emotional state quicker than almost anything.
Yes. Absolutely. So just those 2 things alone, I know immediately I can shift my emotional state just with tapping and oils. And then the other tool I absolutely love is meditation, because it has, I know if I need more meditation, if I'm snapping more, it just creates a non-reactivity around everything. So you're triggered less and again, that's a muscle of, you need to do it regularly. It's, you can't decide one day, I'm going to go lift weights. I'm going to lift, I'm going to be able to do 15 pull-ups. Well, if you can't do one, you need to start somewhere. So, I love meditation, and, basic needs. Movement, walking is, I would say just walking is, I'm that person everybody knows, me and my dog, just walking, just miles around my neighborhood. So I would say those 4 things are probably my go-to, with obvious, like, basic needs, food. Yeah.
So when we talk about this, we're really talking about mothering yourself.
Yes. 100%.
So when I'm saying like, hey, everybody put together a mothering toolkit, and it's for the inner mother. It's for you. Because what kind of mother, I can tell you, I show up like the bitch from hell if I am not taking care of myself.
Oh yes. My kids will call me out. They'll say, like, Mom, I think you need to go meditate. Thanks. Thank you.
We had a joke with my older kids, because I'm a former Mrs. Utah, and I did a whole self-care thing around like learning that in a powerful way when my oldest kids were like 3, 5, and 7. And now that they're all in college, they're as they were getting into their teen years, they're like, Mom, if you were running for Mrs. Utah right now, you'd lose. You're not mother of the year. Not only are you not mother of the year, but like, you're like a freaking maniac right now. So
yeah,
it's just taking that time out. It's like that divine pause. And literally, and I used to do that timeout sign, that they do in sports.
Yes.
I used to make that gesture physically to tell myself it's time. Like, you're no good to anybody right now. Go off and do the self-care stuff. So in my little toolkit, I love that you brought up EFT with oils. That's so powerful because you hit all the pathways. You hit all the sensory pathways.
Yes.
All of them: smell, taste, touch, sound, sight. You hit it all. I love crystals, and I know you do too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm learning a little bit more about them, but I have them all over, so that and having little stations around. So like I have a little station in the kitchen. I have one at my desk. I have one by my bed, and I'm trying to teach the younger kids to create their own stations. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. I don't know if you've noticed this, but children will intuitively know which essential oils they need, even though they can't read the bottles, and they'll know which crystals they need.
Yep. Oh, it's my favorite thing. We have a crystal shop here. They call it a rock shop. It's like non-woo-woo. I'm like, you guys know this is like super woo-woo, right? It's just this old family shop that's been around for ages in a very East Coast conservative area. And I love taking my kids there because I tell them like, just go find your crystals. And I'll give them a limit, whether it's money or amount of crystals, and I'll let them pick them out. And they write on the card the name of the crystal, and then we go look it up afterwards. And every time, and I do the same thing. It is unbelievable how poignant it is. Like there is no other perfect crystal than that one now. It's really fun. It's fun.
Oh yeah. And if I just lay like a pile of crystals in the table or whatever, they'll be like, it's this one. And then I'll look at I'll get out my crystal book and I will look at what's indicated for that particular crystal, like what emotional states. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not just the color they're drawn to. There's some property.
Vibration. Yeah. Yes. And I share this in my book. And this is what I love about that. It's a 2-part book, my journey, and then this information. And I tried really hard to put in a lot of research inside of everything. Cause I know a lot of this can sound very woo-woo and like, okay, Erin, but understand, like I share a lot about hormones, of understanding what hormones are doing what when you're pregnant and post-pregnancy, and to recognize this is why you're feeling that way. And I share a whole study on crystals that was done to show the vibrational frequencies and how water molecules have also changed through a study of how the researcher talked to the water and how the molecules took shape and it's all very scientific. And that's why I share with people that I know it feels, if it's new to you, it might feel a little scary to come out there. I'm the person, like I'm walking around and a crystal falls out of my shirt. I'm like, oh, hey, sorry about that.
Yeah, I know. I put like rose quartz in my bra in like the middle. And sometimes I forget it's there. And I'm like, oh.
You get undressed. And I just pulled things. I pull crystals out of my washer all the time. And I will just a disclosure, if that happens, put your crystals inside a healthy house plant, because the crystal will hold on to the vibration of the washer. And that happened to me. I hold crystals when I shoot weddings to keep me grounded. And I remember I even explained to a friend, I said, I don't know what the hell happened. Excuse me. I don't know what the heck happened today, but I felt like I was in a blender all day. I couldn't get my energy grounded. And I remembered that the crystal I had on me was washed and I never grounded it. It's really kind of cool if you think about it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Erin, I feel like you are just everything coming up. I wish at your life station of kind of relatively early motherhood, I would have had they didn't really have these tools en masse on the earth, even when I started my motherhood journey. So I can't shame myself about that.
No, you can't.
Like your level of self-awareness around this is so powerful. And I'm sorry you had to go through the breakdown, but that's actually a rite of passage. And when somebody,
I'm so grateful for it. I wouldn't be talking to you if I didn't go through it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So as we kind of wrap this up, I definitely want you to tell people where to find your book and how to find you. But also, can you also leave us with just some parting thoughts of if there is a woman who's just in the mire of motherhood right now, and what you would tell her?
I would tell her, you are enough exactly as you are right now. And we cannot compare ourselves to others. We can't compare ourselves to ourselves of what we once were or what we hope to become. That you are absolutely enough right now. And we are trying our very best every single day. And that is enough. And our best is going to look different every day. And that's enough.
It is. Perfect. So your website is erinjoycementoring.com.
Correct. Yeah.
And people can find your book there. They could probably find it on Amazon as well.
Yes,
Right?
Amazon. Yeah. Motherhood Stripped on Amazon.
But I know on your website you have 5 ways to manage anxiety, which is a beautiful, I'm sure a lot of it is what we've incorporated into our discussion today.
Yeah.
But thank you. Really.
Thank you.
It's been very inspiring for me.
Thank you. Same. Likewise.
Hey, so remember your body is your guide. If you feel anxious, you can go within and discover what is creating that, and you can let it move through you. You don't have to mom so hard by earning, improving, fixing everything for everyone. That will burn you out so crazy hard. And don't look at all the messages on social media at how other mothers are handling or not handling, because that can actually increase anxiety unless it empowers you, if it fits for you. There is no mundane. I think that's what I've learned really hard with mothering. Nothing's mundane. Everything is sacred. Even the diaper changing, even the moments you yell or lose control, it's all an invitation to come back into yourself. That's what children teach us. They teach us to be present. So build that muscle of trust with yourself, because that's your greatest tool, especially as we move into the uncharted waters of 2021 and beyond. Have a beautiful week. You are powerful and beautiful, and we'll talk to you next time on Women Seeking Wholeness.